here. I have a doc appointment, so I'm going to head out.
All right. Take care. See you Monday. Be safe.
Best of luck.
Here, Dr. Studer. All right,
All right.
everyone ready?
Yep, let's go.
Here we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, the 3rd of December. We apologize for the late start. We were having some technical difficulties, but they are resolved. So I'm not going to do an introduction for Yanik because we've lost 10 minutes. You read the background on Yanik. You read the topic. Yanik, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. It is all yours. And we're keeping people muted right now. And then when you're ready to have interaction, you can let us know when we'll unmute folks.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob.
You bet.
All right, so we're going to talk about the body stock, which I call it, which is pretty much talking about all the components the body needs, including very small components in very small quantities that really are necessary for the functioning of the body. So it's going to have focus on anti-clotting and thrombosis, since that's one of the big topics regarding the recent vaccination and everything. So with or without it, doesn't matter. This will help you out if that's one of those issues you're concerned with. So the stock is the foundation of any system. Since our body is a system, we really require all these elements. Ones you can see, you can feel, you can count, you can measure. So the last image shows the books, like in a library. Well, it's the same with nutrients and food. So imagine you try to move a car without any wheels. So that's not gonna really work, right? Same thing with not having enough minerals or not having vitamins. Everything stops working, you can't really move things. So this is pretty much an image of what happens when you don't have those essential minerals, or even if your body can produce them, if you don't have the components to produce them, then you get stuck, right? So we can't really enjoy optimal health and function. We can't feel good if we don't have everything the body requires. That includes feeling, thinking, reacting, and doing. So when you have stock scarcity, it's as in scarcity, I would call it, you get scared and it drives us to have certain behaviors. Pica, for example, is one of them, where you can see it in animals that start eating the entire barn. Or you can see it very noticeable in pregnant women that start having all these different cravings. So this happens and it is not very well known, but it is due to certain nutritional deficiencies. So we really need abundant stock to really be able to not have those symptoms, not have such so many diseases that come from these deficiencies, or that are secondary to, or that the disease causes a lack in stock or minerals or vitamins. So we really want controlled energy reactions. If you have an energy reaction that's controlled, you can really engage with your environment. You can feel good. You can have a healthy immune system. If you don't have that, then it becomes uncontrolled and it damages you. We all know the term inflammation. That is, the visual representation of, okay, you've got all this uncontrolled immune response within your body. Well, it happens. Imagine that house is like your cell. So what's the goal of nutritional supplementation? So you really want to be able to supply everything, all those cofactors, which are the components, the elements, or the stock that your enzymes need, your tissue systems, for all those biochemical reactions, and have all the structural components for your body. So we use fatty acids, amino acids, which form proteins, nutrients, minerals, and there are also, food sources which are rich in nutrients, which they call nutraceuticals, and food factors, which have these special antioxidants that really help the body balance out. So they work like a team. You really have all these different minerals. There's not just one that you can say, hey, this one works by itself. You don't need anything else. The body needs so many more. So that's why it's more like a team sport. You have to really have all of them so they can work in combination, because the body is so complex and it has so many different enzymes and coenzymes and all these different functions so it can work. So a cofactor is that essential element that's required for an enzyme to work. What's an enzyme? Well, it's a component. It's a structure that facilitates the activity of metabolic process. We talk a lot about mitochondria here, which is kind of the power plant in cells. It's not the only energy source, but it's a very important one. And coenzymes support these enzymes. So what are they made out of? Well, you need minerals for the enzymes mostly, and for the coenzymes, you need vitamins, which are organic. So two important amino acids that are required for oxygenation and producing nitric oxide, which is an important component for to not get these blood clots or have a healthy vascular system. Well, it's glycine. Glycine is not considered essential, but depending on how much the body can produce, how much you tax your system by working, by exercising, by so many different, there's just so many different ways where you can, where you require more of it. Well, glycine is a precursor for heme, which is, well, it builds heme, which builds hemoglobin, one type of nitric oxide, and different enzymes that are really important. Remember that house in flames? Well, those are really important to keep the candle in check, so it doesn't fall, it doesn't tip over, and doesn't burn everything. So it's very important. I mean, it's essential for oxygenation, getting that oxygen to your cells, to have that vascular dilation, so they can relax. The smooth muscle can relax and it can expand, and you can really protect your cells from all those reactive oxygen species, which are essential for life, but they are also very damaging if they are not kept in check. A balance between those antioxidants, those enzymes, and all these chemical reactions in our body. So arginine is another big one. It builds nitric oxide, and it also builds arginine vasopressin. So it is important to really mediate how you're synthesizing these products like nitric oxide, especially when you have those cytokine storms, which you're seeing when you have inflammation, or inflammation is more of the description of that. And it is very expensive for your body to produce it because it requires a lot of ATP. That's why ingesting arginine is a basic strategy for blood pressure, keeping blood pressure down, and maintaining vascular integrity. So there's another important topic, which is omega-3. There we have another imbalance, which is omega-3, omega-6 in our foods. It's an essential fatty acid, and we really require it so we can have that. Each cell's brain is a membrane, and omega-3 is a major component, as well as some forms of omega-3 are major components in neurons. So we can see how the United States, Canada is very low. Mexico, well, it doesn't even have anything there, but I assure you it's very low as well, due to all these hydrogenated vegetable oils that are consumed over here. So what has been found with the omega-3, especially I'm going to focus on DHA and EPA, which are not technically essential, but they are very important. So they are major components of brain cells, of the membrane. So they are required for stability, to regulate the innate and the adaptive immune system is something that has also been shown. They reduce plasma homocysteine, which is a major marker for cardiovascular disease, and it is always more useful to also supplement with vitamin B6, pyridoxine, and B12 cobalamin. So EPA has also been found to have real good effects, as in increasing the stability of those atherosclerotic plaques, which build in your arteries. And they are one of the major components, that and the free radical damage, which can cause a blood clot to really become loose and travel through your system and get stuck somewhere. So it is also found that it increases the effect of the aspirin, so you don't need to increase your dose of aspirin, because there are a lot of deaths resulting from GI complications by taking aspirin. Some of them are low dose. And actually the FDA has also requalified those health claims. So they're saying, well, hey, there's still not enough evidence, but it's credible enough, so you can really say that it has a good effect for coronary heart disease. So there's also another omega-6 fatty acid that stands out. It's called GLA, which is gamma linoleic acid, and it has this anti-inflammatory, anti-thrombotic, anti-proliferative, and lipid-lowering potential. It's referring to cholesterol, or to be more precise, lipoproteins. And oh, sorry, it's linolenic acid. I'm sorry for that. ALA is linoleic. So GLA are the proteins that require GLA are inhibitors of vascular calcification. So this is really important if you're focused on reducing all those plaques, or the effect of the calcium that's also building up in your arteries or in different parts of your system. So this is a big one, and it's spirulina has been found to have high amounts of it, which is one of those superfoods. I use it frequently, and it will have these effects on blood pressure, endothelial function. It's high in antioxidants, and it has these antioxidants called phycocyanins. It has these enzymes that are called superoxide dismutase, chlorophyll, beta-carotene. So in general, what does it do? It has this special fatty acid that will really help your arteries, your vascular system, and it has so many agents that will keep inflammation down and will keep things rolling smoothly. So vitamin E, it's known for having these anti-clotting properties. It also protects the cell, the cell membrane, which is the brain of the cell. So there are different forms of vitamin E, but this has a long track record of having those blood thinning properties, as well as antioxidant action. So just like when you cut one of those an avocado, and you start seeing it gets a little bit darker. Well, that's what happens to our cells when you see it in your skin. Lack of vitamin E, lack of selenium, major components to really protect yourself from all that that fat becoming rancid in our body. So vitamin D is another big one. So vitamin D really helps keep your calcium in your bones, calcium and phosphorus. So when you're very low in vitamin D, you're gonna have trouble with this when so it'll take it out of your bones, and you'll have an increase in this hormone called parathyroid hormone, which will really leach it out of your bones. So vitamin D is really important for that, as well as having enough calcium in balance with other elements. Considering calcium is essential for blood clotting, right? And there's something called nutritional secondary hyperparathyroidism. So when you eat high phosphate diets, they have so much phosphorus. Well, you induce low calcium levels because your body requires a lot more calcium than phosphorus. And with all the colas and with all eating too much protein, this is one of the issues that can be caused by nutrition. That's why supplementing with calcium is very important, but there are different ways of different forms and methods, because there are several that are not really healthy. You know, it can bring other consequences. That's why I'm not going to go too much into that, but it's good to point this out. So vitamin C is another one of the big ones. So it enhances nitric oxide, which is one of the most potent anticoagulation agents. And it has been found to help restore endothelial function. It also scavenges, it traps all those reactive oxygen species that are, if it's too much, vitamin C will come in and it will help. So it's always very useful to have it. So this is an example of mineral distribution of selenium in China. So why would I show this map? It's really telling what the Earth's crust, the quantities of minerals are found in different locations. China is a very extreme example, that's why I use it. But selenium deficiency has caused and has contributed enormously to different diseases, such as Keyshan disease. So that's why I'm showing this map, because if you really want minerals, when we're talking about, someone tells you to take your vitamin, they're really not telling you to take your multivitamin. They're telling you to take your vitamins and minerals. But minerals cannot be created. The plants can't make them. So it's just like the sprinkles on this ice cream and the cherry top. If someone gives you a bite, where are you gonna, dip your spoon in? So it should be the same for minerals, because our body requires them. Actually, 2/3 of the cofactors are minerals, the essential cofactors. So magnesium, I've talked a lot about this one. Magnesium is so important to continue having a healthy vascular tone. What does this mean? Your arteries, your veins, they can dilate, they can expand as the body needs it, so your blood can flow without being so constricted, and so this results in lowering blood pressure and really maintaining the health of the entire cardiovascular system. It's quite essential. It's also needed to really release ATP, which is one of the most important biofuels for the body. So you need energy for everything. If you don't have magnesium, you can't really release ATP in the mitochondria. That's why they started calling it magnesium ATP. So you need larger quantities of magnesium, which is an important mineral that almost, most people are deficient in. Zinc, another mineral. This is a trace mineral, and it is very important for maintaining regulation on how you bleed, when you bleed, how you clot, how you heal your wounds. And it also has very important benefits. Well, it's quite essential for your immune system to work, as well as other enzymes. So this is one of the most important trace minerals, which has functions and it is in so many components in the body, and it will really boost many aspects of your energy, immune system, and well, other physiological responses. So micronutrients are really integral for the immune system. The immune system requires them so it can function well. The most evidence-based or studied are vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. But since after we are injected a vaccine, or for that, in that case, you really need to have a strong immune system so it can react strongly to any stimulus that comes. And it doesn't matter which type of vaccine, the immune system is the one that will respond to it. So you have to have a strong immune system in order to have a favorable response. Or else, it's not good news. With a depleted body stock, then you tax the system even more, and it may complicate things. So you really want to stock up on all these different nutrients. So here, this is an example of the different steps of the response, the innate response and the adaptive response. Not to complicate things, several vitamins and minerals that we've already talked about are here. So they have so many functions that you're not just doing one thing for the body, like cloning. They're also helping the immune system. They're also carrying out all these different functions. The endothelial dysfunction really precedes the development of atherosclerosis. So that's what's been found, and it really has to do with, it has a lot to do with the production of nitric oxide, of having all those antioxidants to protect your body, the structure, the vessel walls, and it's just an important step to really notice, oh, okay, so there are these different imbalances. So how can I start correcting them before trouble starts getting bigger? So that's why the amino acids, the minerals, the vitamins are also preventative, not just to treat, but they are preventative, because they will always help the body respond, since the body requires them to work. So it's like this, just having some plaque in the water pipes. If you have too many minerals, metals, and this heavy water, it'll really damage the pipes, which is one of the topics we talked about in Lunch and Learns. So you also get leaks. So the body must repair. It's not that you shouldn't clot. You just need a balance. So this is an important trace mineral that has been studied, which is called selenium. And myocardial infarctions, there's this, I chose Keyshawn disease as a topic because it really shows the benefits of supplementing with selenium and all these different manifestations in cardiac dysfunctions, electrocardiogram abnormalities, cardiac enlargement, which is another one of the topics that the group was interested in. So selenium not only has an effect on all of these signs and symptoms, it also is required for a very special enzyme called glutathione peroxidase. And it has an important effect also on really maintaining balance and thrombotic activity. So this is an example of all the different symptoms that are shown in Keyshawn disease: acute, chronic, subacute, latent. We also have the different statistics with the control and the selenium treated group. And this is the important part, that there were so many changes in people taking the selenium supplement that they started giving it to the entire control group because it was so pronounced. And then they started doing that with different regions in China because it was extremely effective. You can just see how those numbers were dropping. So that's what a deficiency, an extreme deficiency can really, how it can manifest. It's not that it's just selenium deficiency. There are other components, but it's a big one. This is also an example of how glutathione peroxidase really helps in the metabolic pathway. So it is not pro-thrombotic. So if you have enough glutathione, then you don't have different buildups which take you into one direction. You know, it all has to do with balance. It has to do with proportions. If you don't have that, then the system starts compensating in different ways. So even though selenium is one of the important components for that has been shown to really have beneficial effects for congestive heart failure, thiamine is also an important vitamin, which is prevalent in hospitalized patients. You know, around, I think it's 1/3 of them, at 32, 33%, had thiamine deficiency. So either way, it has been shown to improve cardiac function and all those symptoms that come with prior to heart failure. So another component, this is where stock has memory. Okay, this is another important aspect of a system. It will tell you the history of change in flows in a system. It shows throughout different behaviors, actions over time. And there are two ways for the flows to the direction. You know, they either fill the stock or they drain it. And since stock is the foundation of any system, this really tells you a lot of patterns, behaviors of the person, eating patterns, activity patterns. If you work a lot, if you overwork, if you overexercise, all these different aspects will drain your body stock. So it is very important to put it back in. You know, if you drain it, you want to fill it back up. But it always provides insight as to what the person is doing, what the person's eating. If the person is binge eating, for example, it'll drain the person of several different components. It'll have these different hormonal buildups, and it will also drain minerals, and it will take all these vitamins to really metabolize it, you know, as in to really transform what you eat into energy, into muscle, into your skeleton, into your brain, into all these components that we need. So that's what takes you to really know what's your story, and it'll give you that insight into your clients, your patients' story, regardless of what they're saying. What they're saying is very important, but there are things that they don't notice or they're not aware of, and that's where this knowledge comes in. So now we're coming into modulation. Modulation, which is an important aspect of neurofeedback, of knowing how to breathe, heart math, is crucial. You can take all the supplements you want, but if you're draining them at a quick pace, if you're overworking, if you're eating certain foods or not eating, or just eating one time a day for prolonged times, and you also get these leaks and you can't in your gut, for example, and you can't absorb them. So you really have to be able to absorb them. You also have to be able to understand that there are limited amounts of stock in the body. And if the body is telling you, hey, let's slow down, and then you stimulate it with caffeine, for example, then you're increasing that flow rate and you're draining yourself. So just like, a firefighter that loses control of the hose with all that pressure, modulation is really important to be able to control that um, uh, your body's behavior, including high blood pressure or too much stress from work that can lead you to have this increased anxiety and depression. So the flow is elemental. Now we have a different example of how two different elements, components in the body, are very important to regulate. The pH states in the body are extremely important. So breathing, hyperventilating, is something so many people do, and they are not aware of it. That's where heart math comes in. So why is carbon dioxide even more essential element for the body than oxygen? I mean, you need them both, right? But without enough carbon dioxide, there is no oxygen reaching the cell. So this was an important discovery, which was called the Virgo-Bohr effect. It's a law. So it's pretty much taking account that if you reduce your levels of carbon dioxide, then oxygen also reduces. So you start breathing quicker, your oxygen will go down because you don't have enough carbon dioxide. So you also have more energy. So that's where you see people in heart math also talking about the increase in your electromagnetic field. Well, yeah, this is one of those important components for it. There's also a very delicate balance between acid and base states. So breathing is one of the most important, the most important aspects which will lead us into a quicker path into regaining energy, calm, and regulating our own system. There's also this, that's why it's also important for neurofeedback performance. You have more energy, you have more oxygen, your neurons will be able to have a lot more endurance, for example. You needed to activate them as well. So it's an essential tool, a life-sustaining tool, which can be used and learned very easily and very quickly. So this other enzyme called carbonic anhydrase is an important enzyme which really speeds up all this conversion of carbon dioxide, and it is quite elemental in speeding that transition up. And the most abundant trace mineral is zinc. So behavioral patterns, neurofeedback. This is what neurofeedback is all about. Changing patterns and stimulating certain patterns so you can activate neurons, and it's an attempt to change these different behaviors in the brain, which we also seen in our behavior with society, in our thoughts. And self-regulation is essential to be able to direct and use all the body's resources. So neuroplasticity requires stimulation, which an example is using neurofeedback. But it also requires different resources for that stimulation to work or to be grounded, which is oxygen, glucose, and also having the neurons protected from too much oxidative stress. or overstimulation, overthinking things. So these are very important components. It's not just the stock, it's the flow of stock. It's how much you're using, which are really essential for to sustain life. And well, that's it. That's it. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I'll just open up communication so anyone can ask questions. To Rob?
All right, yeah, we're here. Yep. Okay,
Okay.
so we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and get people unmuted, which takes about a minute or two. Aaron's gonna do that for us, Yanik. So while he's doing that, let me just
Okay.
pose a quick question to you.
Okay.
When you
Sure.
talk about blood sugar, blood levels, and you get tests, there's an elevated protein, and you spoke to that, having too much protein in your blood, which causes all kinds of problems and can result from things like dehydration and other things. Has
Yeah.
that got any correlation to how much protein you eat, or is that separate from it?
Yes, it has a high correlation. I mean, it depends on how much protein we eat. So if it's too much protein, which is high in phosphorus, we don't have
Uh-huh.
enough calcium, then that's what happens. It'll suck, it'll start sucking the calcium out of your bones. It'll because there has to be a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 calciums for 1 phosphorus in our
Gotcha.
bones. So that's why you can eat high protein diets and also for exercising to replace, that lost muscle mass, but you need
Mm-hmm.
enough calcium.
Gotcha. All right. That makes perfect sense. Okay, I think we probably have everybody else unmuted, so I'm going to be quiet for a moment and see if other people have questions for you.
Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
This is Diane.
Hi, Diane.
Yanik, I was wondering, you're looking at all these levels. So is there particular tests that you recommend people to get done to assess these body systems and if they're getting what they need?
Well, the hair mineral test is quite effective. It's very
Okay.
useful. However, I truly use symptom-based reporting as well as other energy-based bioenergy Russian devices to review the entire system and monitor. But checking your glucose levels, your blood pressure is pretty much basic for it. But knowing how many minerals you have, you can really see that through the hair analysis and also in your blood tests. The lab tests, it'll
Mhm.
tell you a lot. So
Okay.
basic
Okay,
tests
thank you.
that would take some time to explain that. So just in
Okay.
general.
Well, thanks for that answer. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So either way, for me, this was elemental because I used to have epilepsy, asthma, severe asthma, and so many food allergies, and nutrition was part of it, but it really was very limiting. That's where I kept on digging and really preparing myself and learning about all these different components and how they impact health. So it really was a life changer for me.
Yeah, Richard and I and others have talked here about doing hair analyses from time to time when we see certain profiles in a map, because we know that for example, if somebody had a significant head injury, brain injury, then it can compromise the blood-brain barrier, and then you start having leakage of heavy metals into the brain.
Yeah.
So I think that's, an important thing to understand. And then if you went ahead and did something like a hair analysis, for testing for heavy metals. The one that we have used, the ARL one we discussed a week or two ago, Yanik.
Uh-huh.
I think you may have been there with us. It
Yeah.
also gives you things like reads on all those elements like copper, magnesium, and then at the bottom of it tells you whether you're a fast oxidizer or a slow oxidizer, and it points at any imbalances like magnesium, calcium, and the things you were discussing. So for people who were interested in understanding that, that's one way you could find out whether you have certain too much or too little of minerals or any sort of imbalances based on the necessary ratios for optimum health. So I wanted to just tie that in because we were talking about that, within the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's crucial, the proportions. If you have too much copper, too much of one of these different metals or minerals, there's also the, several are antagonists. So if you have too much copper, you can use higher doses of vitamin C, and you'll start losing those excessive amounts of copper. So there's also these different ways, but yeah, that mineral analysis is a really good tool, as well as I just remember the omega-3, omega-6 index. It will
Mhm.
also tell you your ratios, and including EPA and it has different segments, and it'll tell you how many trans fatty acids you have, and the different levels of omega-3, and so that's also a very useful study that is it's really simple to carry out. You just need some drops of blood.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, the reason why I asked about that test is I was working with it's Diane again, a functional medicine doctor for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And she had me do an ion test. And I don't know if there's another name for that, but it was a very dense document that came out that talked about all my body systems, and if I had the I'm not going to speak brightly about this, but the precursors to things that I needed in order for that system to function properly. Does that ring a bell to you?
Well, yeah, I use something called a bioelectrography, which
Uh-huh.
is also you use your fingertips. It gives you an electric discharge. You don't
Mm-hmm.
feel it, but
Mm-hmm.
it tells you about it. It's very highly correlated to different systems in the body,
Mm-hmm.
and I've heard about the one you're talking about. I'm not sure of the accuracy of it. The one I use is very accurate when I see the lab tests as well as what the person is saying, and I have different
Mm-hmm.
things measuring. But either way, you need
Mm-hmm.
all these components. I mean, they're
Yeah.
essential. And the thing is, they also, the ones that aren't essential, they they may be conditionally essential because you're using so much of your body, or you don't have all the components to build them. So you really
Right.
need this shotgun approach of taking several different minerals and vitamins in bioavailable ways. So and it's really likely that you're low in so many of these because it is common. It's more of the rule, that people
Yeah.
are really deficient.
Yeah, this was a blood and urine, quite a large battery. They took a whole bunch of blood and then examined urine too. So I'm wondering if it's the same test that you were thinking of. Yeah, so that's great. That's very helpful.
Okay, glad to
Yeah,
help.
thanks.
Yanik, great presentation. I have a question. So if we're low in these minerals, and these vitamins and whatnot, what are your thoughts about the gut, about gut healthy here?
Oh, okay,
Because that's
well,
the first thing I was thinking about, is that, if we're not retaining these vitamins and we're deficient, I think we should start also looking at the gut as to what the health is as
of
well.
course. Yes, of course. I just didn't, it's just such a huge topic. I just try to
Right, yeah,
make it as simple as I could. But the
yes.
gut is, first, we're not just what we eat, we're what we absorb. So first you have to
Mm,
digest it, right? If you don't have enough salt in your diet to produce hydrochloric acid, then You won't really get the pH you need to really break down food and protein. And then we come to the absorb part, or in the intestines. So leaky gut, that's why all these hot topics about, gluten, wheat, and several different foods, how they really impact, they damage the villi in our intestines. So if we can't absorb it, then we need higher doses. We need to eliminate those types of foods, at least temporarily, and see how much the impact it's causing in our body. Because without absorbing it, it's really not, I mean, you can't do anything with it. You can't transform it, or if it's not sufficiently digested. So it really works in combination. So there's an example. If you want to absorb more calcium, you need to have a more acidic environment. So if you take sodium bicarbonate or a carbonate, how do you say this? Well, if you take a cola with it or something like that, then it'll just, it won't help. I mean, it won't help you absorb it. Or if you take butter, the butyric acid, it really helps you absorb different vitamins. So they can also, you have food sources that work in synergy, and the gut is definitely a crucial part. I mean, you cannot even really start talking about effective supplementation without focusing on the gut since the beginning.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate your answer.
You're welcome.
Hi, Yanik. This is Carl Johnson.
Hey, Carl.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rob mentioned something. I just want to make sure I understood. He mentioned something about a protein, and I was wondering, was he referring to C-reactive protein on the blood?
Yeah,
Oh.
if you get like a blood panel done, Carl, and it shows excessive protein, that's what I was speaking to when you like go and get a physical where they're testing your CBC and all those kinds of things.
Okay, so not C-reactive protein, just the regular protein, which is made up of albumin and globulin.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to confirm.
Okay. Thank you. Good for everybody to know as well.
Okay. Well, either way, and C-reactive protein is also a really good topic, and because it's an important marker for inflammation, and omega-3 and different supplements here, as in vitamin D, also have a strong impact on it. So just to add a little bit in there.
All right. Well, we're close to the top of the hour here. Any one last questions for Yanik before we?
Maurice here. Yes, very quick one, Yanik. In the lead-in, the email you originally sent, you had mentioned, of course, cautiously COVID. So could you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. Well, one of the minerals that has been shown to have, well, it's more of a metal that has been shown to have a potent effect on virus in general is selenium. So when we talk about Kishan disease, we're also talking about a viral component called Coxsackie, which also depletes the body of certain metals, including selenium, HIV as well. So high levels of selenium have been shown to be really useful for this. And either way, if we are talking about COVID or any other type of virus, your immune system is the most important component. So having all those minerals and vitamins will really help your immune system be ready, primed to respond, and to really be able to locate, target, and after that, be really resilient in terms of whichever, if the virus mutates or you have another version or whatever, I mean, it's the survival mechanism of a virus, of an RNA virus. So you really have to count on your immune system and keeping it primed to really respond, as well as, you know, any type of vaccine. You want it to have the best effect, you need to have the a good supply of those components.
So which
Uh,
components would you add, Yanik, if you wanted to boost your immune system, just as a general, without having a lot of specific information? In
Oh
this
yeah,
time period, what would you
I'll
add?
just I'll send a list anyway of the different components. They're not too many. I mean, it was a way of explaining it, but I would add zinc, vitamin D, selenium, vitamin C, magnesium. Those would be the primary components I'd use that just come up, or, you know, pretty much helping your immune system in general.
Thanks. And thanks for your talk today. Very comprehensive and very understandable. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Judy.
Agreed. Well,
Glad you
thank you,
enjoyed
Yanik. Great job, and really appreciate you taking the time to put the presentation together and be with us today. And hope you have a good weekend, and everybody have a good weekend, and we will see you here on Monday night.
See you
All
Monday.
right. Thank
Okay,
you.
everybody, take care. Thanks again, Yanik. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you. Thanks.